This week on the Blast Off, we're here at the BAM Pro Am. We're going to connect with a couple of the top anglers on the West Coast that are competing in this week's 3-day format that's going to be taking home a $43,000 Vexus boat. This is a podcast in conjunction with the Bass Angler magazine, and we've got some fantastic Super 60 pros, as well as some of the Pro Am pros on here to cover the California Delta. And we're going to get started with the one and only Bo Jowdry. How are you doing today, Bo?
I'm good. I'm really excited to get into this tournament. It's kind of lining up uh in the way I like to fish. I'm really excited to get out there. I started to see a lot moving up. Um, some good quality fish.
Awesome. And let's dive deeper into that. How do you like to fish? I mean, how's it setting up in general compared to past years? Has it been a good spawn? Has it started later than usual? I mean, what do you think it's going to look like this week?
Well, as far as what it's going to look like this week, I think that guys are going to, get a few key top water bites in the morning. I think the punch bite might pick up. Um, but once that tide drops out, I feel like I can go catch fish, sight fish. You're gonna be on beds. There's a lot of good fish to catch out there on beds. And I like to do it finesse. So
Awesome. I mean, that sounds like it should be fun then. Hopefully, some good visibility out there. I know a lot of times right after rain, it gets pretty mudded up in some sections, but it's been a lot of good days in a row of nice sunshine. It's starting to feel like spring again. But from a Delta local, I mean, you're local to this area, you fished it a long time. I mean, what is the California Delta for people that may not know about this expansive waterway, and how do guys break down a place this big?
it's very, very hard. And you have to deal with tides. You got to deal with boat traffic. You have to deal with carp at this time of year. Carp can play a factor in finding your bedfish. They can make it really hard to find. So you really just kind of got to locate the right areas. It's all about areas. So um, in practice, I covered a lot of water, and that's something other anglers, if they're wanting to come out and learn the delta, that's something they probably should do is cover a lot of areas. And just pay attention to what's out there.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it goes from pretty much all the way out to the bay. There's a little bit of that hybrids, fresh and salt water, but then it comes into all the way Sacramento, all the way down to Oakley, where we're at right now. We're in Big Break Marina for this event, but then get all the way down to Lads Marina, and then into, I mean, just all the way through this, not quite Central Valley, but then it connects to aqueducts all the way up to pulling water into Southern California. So I mean, pretty much every waterway in California goes into the California Delta, which is what makes it a pretty exciting place. Again, being this expansive, it makes it very hard. I know there's spots that you can go out here and catch smallmouth bass. There's areas on the river that are known for more current based bites, but um, I mean, where are guys going to run to out of Big Break? Do you think they're going to be running 50, 60 miles one way?
There'll be a handful of guys that maybe stay out west. I think the majority of the field will probably go, south, mid Delta south. A couple guys might go up, northeast. There's just a lot of good water out there. Like, a lot of grass is growing and it's filtering the water. It's making it really clear and making sight fishing something that might play in this tournament.
And is that something that has changed over the last few years? I know spraying used to really affect, I mean, the vegetation, the quality of the bass. And I mean, between that, sea lions, and all the threats that, I mean, from different agriculture products getting into the water, there's just a lot of diversity and issues that these fish have to cover. But how has the Delta surged from 20 years ago to what it is today? And is it going in the right direction?
It's a roll of the dice every year. It's different. The grass dies. I think that we didn't have a very, very cold winter where all the grass did die off to where the new grass grows. So has grown. It's a lot of areas are like almost too thick to fish. A lot of like the spots that I like to go to in the past 3, 4 years. I can't fish it. I did notice there's a lot of new areas to fish that look great and the fish have moved. So it's just locating those new areas.
Okay, and I mean, before we get into some of the more technique specific stuff that you like to do, I mean, what you've kind of made your bread and butter on, what about the turnout? I mean, we have almost 90 boats at this event, I think 89 to be exact. We've got almost a full field of co-anglers. Do you think the tournaments are going in the right direction finally after a little bit of a slump?
That's awesome. That's great to hear. That's it's amazing to see another and almost 80 boat pro field out here on the Delta. It's been a long time. That's really, really cool. I think we're going in the right direction 100%. I think everybody's learning. You have new anglers coming in, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. I feel like all the pros out there are 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 making it great for these co-anglers. I don't think we have. I haven't heard any bad stories. Like 10 years ago when I used to fish, it was like, oh, I got a bad pro. No, everybody's out here to help each other.
Yeah, and I mean, just talking about the way co-anglers are treated, one thing unique about our format is not only is it shared weight, but we also have high school anglers getting involved. So the fact that they're able to come out and have a good experience. One of those is your son. I mean, how's that really shifted, been for his morale getting into the sport? Has he enjoyed it so far?
Yeah, he's loving it. He's already talking about a truck and a boat and going to college and doing the Simpson thing. And yeah, he's pumped about it. We'll see how far he goes, but he's enjoying it. He's meeting a lot of great pros. He got like a lot of great feedback. He's learning a ton from them. And what's fun is when I get into the way, and I want to see how he's doing. I'm really excited to see how he's doing, whether I had a good or bad day. I really want to see how he's doing. So,
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, I think that's how it should be for all of the youth, and that's why we really did try to put this into play. I mean, being able to be a high school angler that may be watching this, you can sign up for $100 and fish with a pro-am angler for 2 days of competition. And I mean, we've already done this on Lake Shasta. We did it last season. The high angler of the year won a $25,000 a year scholarship to Simpson University. So there's a lot of good benefits for doing it, and the biggest one is you just get to learn, you get to experience, and you get to do it at a rate that once you are 18 years old, it gets a lot more expensive real quick. So you can kind of get a taste for what your future can look like, which is pretty cool. And same for the co-anglers. I mean, to be able to fish with, I mean, basically almost a guided trip for 3 days if you make the top 10 for $500. That's not a bad deal either. And I mean, co-angler first place is 7 grand, and I mean, you get a shot at getting that AOY to get into the championship where it's 250 grand.
oof.
How are you feeling about that? You think that this is going to be a tournament that you have to do well at to qualify for? And how do you think those Northwest guys are going to do competing out here in this body of water?
I feel like the Delta's kind of, I don't want to say wide open, but it's. I think yes, I do. I think they're going to do. I think a lot of guys are going to do well that aren't from here because as long as they're moving around, they're going to fall. Um, and they don't know, they don't have any preconceived, hey, I'm going to go here, or because it changes every year. So hopefully everybody has a good time up.
Okay. Well, now, because we have a couple guests coming on, I do want to get a little bit of juice from you. I've heard you're a really great sight fishing guy. You like bed fishing. I've seen you throw a chatterbait out here, throw these different reaction baits to get good fish. I think a couple years ago in one of the biggest tournaments at that time, you caught like an 8 pounder on camera, which was pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, give us a little bit of juice on what bed fishing is like out here on the Delta versus other fisheries, and just a little bit of insight on how you can get a little better at it.
Okay, well, you got to go into it knowing that it can be very disappointing. Things can turn very fast. Muddy water, boat traffic, um, the tide. It's like you have an hourglass, and it's time to go, and you got to catch those fish. It just depends on where they're at. I like to finesse them for the most part, unless I get something that's real finicky, then I'll throw big baits on them. And that's pretty much it. Just try to find the ones that are locked and learn their behaviors and really work at that fish's behavior. That's what has helped me throughout these years on bed fishing is learn that fish's behavior.
And if you could pick one bait, is it going to be that Robert Lee zipper worm that got him a lot of big California Delta bass, or what is that go-to bait for you?
The go-to bait for me, I'll tell you after.
Okay. All right. Well, what about just one quick prediction? How much do you think it's going to take a day? And I mean, if you were a betting guy, would you be putting the money on what you're going to do out there?
I feel like, well, yeah, I do. I do feel like I've got a shot. It could change tomorrow. I think 20 to 22 pounds. I think guys are going to come in with some big bags in a couple days. I don't know if you'll be able to back it up. It's really, I'm hoping for over 20 today.
I think that's a good thing to go for. We appreciate you coming on here, Bo. One thing he talked about was tides, and that's why we're going to bring on the next angler in just a minute. He's going to be talking about tides, how that affects it on a waterway like this, but he's also going to be talking about how he's been successful and how he became the mayor of Frank's Track. So stay tuned for the Blast Off podcast, and we'll be back shortly.
Randall and I want to talk to you real quick about choosing the right electronics mount for your bass boat.
And we know the quality and effort that Van Foster has put into this company.
So what you get is a custom fitted mount, not some mass produced universal mount for every bass boat out there.
Seat pedestal plugs, tool holders, steering wheel spacers, and battery trays are all made with the same attention to detail that Bass Boat Technologies is known for. Check them out at bassboattech.com. You'll be glad you did.
Ever struggled to navigate shallow waters without damaging your boat? Realize your boat's potential with outboard motor performance products from Bob's Machine, an award-winning world leader in the marine industry since 1978. With over 45 years of dedication to quality, Bob's Machine offers innovative hydraulic transom jack plates and accessories for your boat.
Back on the blast off, we're taking a long run up to Frank's Tract, and we found the mayor. We've got Zach Thompson on here right now, and he's going to give us a little bit of insight about his predictions for the Delta Pro Am, and then we're going to talk tides. How are you doing, Zach?
Doing good. I'm enjoying the week, and I'm looking forward to going fishing tomorrow.
Cool. And I mean, yeah, tell us how practice has gone for you, how tournaments like this, I mean, have set up in the past, and what you're expecting for this week.
You know, the Delta every year fish is different, and it's depending on where they spray the grass, how things are growing, and that kind of thing. It's an evolving creature every year. So, um, I think things are looking good. Big fish for me are kind of few and far between, but I think I know where a few are. So hopefully I can make that happen tomorrow and the next day and make the top 10.
And I mean, what is a good caliber fish here for this time of year? Are going to be 6 to 8 pounders brought in, or is it? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
get 5 over 4, and you have a good bag.
Well, I think if you get 5 over 4, you'll be doing good. And if you can catch a 6 or 7, to go along with that, you'd be going a long way. I think though a lot of guys are probably gonna not luck into, but catch a couple good size, maybe a 4 or 5 pounder, and then they're gonna have some small bucks to go along with it. The weather's been a little bit funky, cold fronts coming through, getting warm like it is right now, and the fish are just a little bit scattered. They're not really all in the same program, and so depending on which area of the river you fish, you might be in pre-spawn, post-spawn, or spawn. So right now it's kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah, and I mean, you just talked about a little bit of a point that we covered with Bo. How expensive the Delta is. I mean, it goes a long ways, but I mean, can you kind of break down for the guys that may not know about this? I mean, how the Delta is somewhat split up a little bit in main areas.
Yeah, no, so up north and down south, they tend to seem like they warm up faster and fish tend to spawn earlier. When you get to the middle delta, like around Frank's Track where I tend to fish a lot, the fish tend to be a little bit behind. So a lot of times you can be catching pre-spawn fish when other guys are catching spawn and post-spawn fish. But with the weather we're having, I think it's kind of just spread out throughout the system. But I mean, you can run an hour and a half or you can run 5 minutes, and there's fish everywhere in between. It's just a matter of what you want to do to settle down and how you want to approach the river.
And I mean, a lot of times when you hear the Delta, guys go straight to the flipping stick. They go straight to throwing a frog. They want reaction, but you use a lot of those 7 reels. You use that light line, P line, and you do something a little bit differently. I mean, how have you become successful out here on this body of water, breaking it down, learning it, and doing things differently than the average person would?
Well, the way I break it down is I've always enjoyed just understanding an area and fishing through it through the tide cycles. Um, there's kind of two key ways that guys approach the river. They either run the tide or they fish an area. And so I've always been more of the fish an area kind of guy. because there'll be bite windows throughout the different tides, and either you have a bunch of spots to run, but you're constantly trying to stay on a clock to follow the tide, or you can just pick an area that's productive and figure out what those bite windows are, and you move from section to section. Because, for example, in Frank's Track or Mildred Island or Big Break, the flooded ponds, there'll be areas that get hit good with an incoming current or an outgoing current, or areas that the fish will tend to congregate in the in between times. So if you can get intimate with an area, then you don't really have to run the tide. But at the same time, if you're on a bite that wants to have incoming water, you can follow that either in, upriver or downriver, depending. And so there's a lot of ways to approach it. But for me, the most beneficial way about it is always just been to kind of hunker down in an area and understand where you have to be as the tide changes and the bite windows open.
Where's the juice?
And how different is it fishing a tidal fishery compared to fishing some of these motherlode lakes that guys may be used to? I mean, did it take you years to break it down? Or, I mean, a lot of guys, I feel like they get discouraged almost when they come out here to the Delta.
Yeah, you have to really look at it like a river, and the difference with a regular river versus a tidal river is the current moves both directions, different times of the day. So, you really have to key in on what the fish were feeding on or active during that tide cycle. And so that's why if you stay in an area and you learn how the fish relate as the tide switches, you can be pretty productive without having to run around a lot. So the way I look at it is if you come out fun fishing on the Delta, it's a great time. You may have a good day, you may have a bad day, but you're probably going to find some active fish throughout that day. If you want to convert that into a tournament style strategy, you really need to focus more on when you were getting the bites, what the area looked like that you were getting the bites on, and what that tide cycle was. Because if you come back in a tournament and you just say, "Oh, I caught fish in this area and it was a high tide, I'll try it at a low tide," the chances of you doing well in that event is very low because you're not trying to catch the fish when they were feeding, you're trying to fish the spot. Whereas if you're on a motherlode lake or clear lake or any lake that's just a reservoir, you can fish in the morning or in the afternoon. You can figure out when the fish are active and hit your high production spots. But on the Delta, those high production spots are only good at that specific tide. So it takes a while to get used to until you have enough areas that you have confidence in to be able to run those tides.
Okay, and I guess here's a question. Since you've been so, I mean, dialed into the Delta for year after year, um, who are your idols out here when you started fishing? And I mean, are those guys still in the mix of things? Are you seeing new guys that are starting to excel in different ways? And I mean, how has strategy changed out here over the last 25 years?
Well, when I was little or younger, in my early 20s, it's been like 30 years now. Guys like Jim Stitch and John Harper and D. Thomas, guys like that were here, Bobby Barrick, and each of those guys kind of had a little bit of a different take on things. D was a flipper, Bobby threw a frog, Jim Stitch fished a lot of the open water on Frank's Track, and as I was learning Frank's Track, Jim Stitch was actually a big influence on me because even though I was a young kid at the time, he was willing to kind of tell me some of the things that I was missing because he'd see me out there fishing some of those open water spots that I was finding. And he would tell me, "Hey, you should check this on a different tide," or, keep in mind that some of these spots are better on different tides, to where I just kept working and working and working to where, some of those spots are the same spots that I fished for 20 years. But they don't always produce. And sometimes you catch little ones, sometimes you catch big ones. It's just really a matter of what those fish want to do that day. I kind of call it like JV and varsity. Some days you show up out there and they're JV, the little ones. But when the little ones aren't biting, you're usually catching big ones. So, but yeah, back in the day, guys like D. Thomas, Bobby, Jim Stitch, those are the guys that I kind of looked up to because they each had a different way of approaching the river. And each of them was very valid. And I just tended to be one of those guys that like to fish offshore.
Yeah, and I mean, now if you look at it, I mean, you're one of those guys. We've got Ken Ma, that's probably one of, I mean, more big events out here than you can count. I mean, you've won a lot of very large events. Ish Monroe's known for throwing his frog out here, and a lot of guys have become a staple for the California Delta. But just like JV and varsity, you're going to have a co-angler in your boat the next, hopefully 3 days for you. How can they learn from a guy that's fishing in a pro-am format? What are the benefits of being a co in a tournament like this? And I mean, what is the best way to approach it as a learning experience?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just being open-minded, not being caught up in what the pro is doing in a fish that he's catching, but just paying attention to the areas that he fishes. Keep an eye on what the currents are doing when you're out there. So when you come out later, not that you want to fish the same spots, obviously, but you get a sense of is he was fishing an incoming tide, an outgoing tide, a slack tide. Was he punching on the high water or the low water? And just kind of just pay attention to the nuances because those are the things that separate people. And the Delta it's the only big tidal river that we have on the West Coast that's a good fishery, and it's unique. We get a lot of grass. We have a lot of predators out there: sea lions, birds, otters. And there's a lot of variables that come into play. The river, as a co-angler, there's a great chance of you catching some good fish and having a good time. I mean, it's you can be fishing shallow grass and tulies. You can be fishing offshore. You can be cranking. I mean, there's so many ways to catch them here. It's really fun.
Yeah. And as a pro, how important is it to be able to know how to run the waterway correctly? I mean, what are the key safety indicators out here, things that guys should do to get into it?
Well, the biggest thing that I would recommend is if you're new to the river and you just want to come in and investigate some areas or go to areas you haven't been to before, I recommend coming on a low tide because you'll see a lot of the obstacles and you'll be able to find your way around. And so then when high tide comes, hopefully you remember, there's some logs on that shallow point, or, this area gets really choked up at low tide, so it's probably a lot shallower. So if you come and look around at areas at low tide, even if the fish aren't biting, you get a sense of how the river lays out, some of the hazards and things to avoid, and also a lot of the areas that you can easily run around all day and you don't have to worry. It's really not that dangerous at all. It's just a matter of kind of paying attention and just kind of knowing where you're at.
Awesome. Well, before we swap to the next guest, give these guys one tip that they may not have thought about to do out here. Maybe not a tournament winning tip until Sunday, but something that these guys might need to try differently next time they tie on a certain style of bait or technique.
Well, I mean, I would recommend, almost everybody fishes the bank on the Delta, and there's a lot of water away from the bank that holds a lot of fish all year long. So don't be afraid to fish offshore. Don't be afraid to do some techniques that maybe people don't consider to be the Delta's techniques. You can deep crank here. You can throw a drop shot, Nico rig, Ned rig. You can minnow fish here and use your port facing sonar. So don't look at it like you have to be on the bank. I think that'd be the biggest thing I would say. That there's fish throughout the system, and the ones that are on the bank are usually the most targeted and also the hardest to catch.
Awesome. Well, there's your BAM Tackle Warehouse tip of the day. We appreciate you coming on here, Zach. Give a prediction on what you think is going to lead it after 3 days or after 2 days to get into the final day. And then give one more piece of advice on someone that's watching that should be stepping into fishing down the road.
Well, I think this tournament's going to kind of be hit or miss. I think a guy who catches like 23 pounds a day is probably going to be up there, and probably need another 20 pounds at the end of the day to win. So that's what 66 or 67 pounds, I'm guessing. But there's going to be guys who aren't anywhere close to that. As far as if you want to get into fishing, BAM and the circuits that Mark runs are unbelievable, and I can't recommend them highly enough. But if you're into fishing and you want to get involved, get in a club, get in a pro-am as a co-angler, get to see what we do for a day, and I think you'll have a great time. And the group of guys you fish against are amazing, and you're going to meet new great guys every day.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. The mayor of Frank's Track gave some great advice. If you're on social media, check him out. He has a lot of good advice, some great fish catches, maybe even a few tips to help you out down the road. Thanks for your time, Zach. Good luck this week. And stay tuned because we've got one more guest ready to give some great information.
Tackle Warehouse has everything you need to get out and catch more bass. Rods for every application or technique. Over 1,000 reels to choose from. monofilament, braid, and fluorocarbon lines. A massive selection of baits from the smallest to the largest. Exclusive baits and colors only available at Tackle Warehouse. Everything you need to build or customize your favorite lures. And of course, countless options to store it all. Tackle Warehouse. Click, save, fish.
Competitive anglers powered by Mercury Pro XS outboards have won more bass fishing tournaments than all other brands combined. With lightning-quick acceleration, legendary reliability, and lightweight design, Pro XS has everything you need to travel farther, faster, and harder.
Back on the BAM Startup Show by StorQuest. We're here going to let's just keep rolling into it. All right. Back on the BAM Startup Show presented by StorQuest Self-Storage. We just talked about tides. We talked about how to catch big fish on beds. We talked about a lot of good information. And now we're going back to the grassroots. We found an angler that grew up out here on the California Delta, started as a co-angler, has made his way into the pro side now. And he's just got a lot of experience out here over the last 20 plus years. His name is Ted Perry. How are you doing, Ted?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, we appreciate you coming on here. You've started fishing in the BAM Pro-Ams over the last couple of years. It's been a really fun time. I think I've seen you progress. I mean, just as I've progressed in the sport, it's been, I mean, and that's really what it's about. It's that cycle of starting as a co-angler, working your way up, getting that confidence, moving to the front of the boat. And talk a little bit about your story, how that worked for me.
Sure. Yeah. So I started fishing when I was really young. In fact, I started fishing with an old school name of Fred Rombanis back in the early 90s. I grew up fishing with him. He was my first team partner. And we fished the ABAs. And that was when we were fishing against Steve Thomas and Bobby and there was no, high school divisions or anything like that. I would think I was 15 and Fred was 17, was 2 years older. And so, started out at a really young age. Got to fish, a lot of team tournament stuff. Never started fishing the programs, like you said, until just 2 years ago. But did a lot of the club team stuff. Since the 90s and early 2000s, continued to fish with Bo Joffrey as well. But I grew up with those guys, which was, Bo Godry, Fred Robanas, Zach Thompson, and an old school name I don't know if you remember, Jason Cordiali. So
He might be a little before my time. I mean, I'm only 24. I've only been in it since I was 18.
Yeah.
But much like you, I mean, you can make your way very quickly. And I mean, if you look at the guys he started with, Fred, he's off and running now, and he's been doing real well.
Yeah.
But I mean, what has that progression looked like out here on the West Coast? What is it that some guys have that make them succeed? And I mean, what is it? I mean, fundamentally, is it starting as a co-angler, moving your way up, getting confident in your techniques, or what's the secret?
I think the secret is time on the honestly. And if you're passionate about it, I think you're going to try to figure it out. What's the ways that are catching was telling. Back when I started, there was no social media, so it's kind of word of mouth. I think the secrets were getting a lot longer. So I think, being able to access information now is a little bit different from when I grew up, especially last 10 years. But I think really time on the water. So I think, first and foremost, fishing as a co. Fishing with someone that's the thing. I was really fortunate. I grew up with a lot of guys that spend a lot of time on the water. I used to be a bodybuilder, so that was just kind of fishing was like fun, just kind of part-time thing for me. And my buddies all did it full-time. I got to be the guy that they would call to take out. So I was really fortunate being exposed to some really good fishermen growing up and learning a lot of tips and techniques along the way. And I think having that exposure is what allowed me to become a better fisherman over the years. But at the same time, fishing some of those team events with somebody that's better than you and knows what they're doing and really learning, because you can read, you can do all the videos, but until you really get out there and understand the fishery itself, I think that's the most important to the puzzle is at the end of the time on the water, the Delta, it being a tidal fishery, it changes constantly, daily, and yearly, obviously the grass grows different every year, but a lot of soot that comes in and moves out. So you have certain sloughs that are certain depths one year and all of a sudden the next year, so being aware of all those changes, but being able to also understand what to look for in the Delta. And of course, grass is always good. That's what I did want to talk about this year. The grass, we didn't really have much of a winter, so the grass really never had a chance to die off. So it's funny, be careful what you wish for. I know we always say, hey, spraying all the grass, there's no grass, and fish out high. This year, there's almost 200 guys. So it's finding those fish that relating to the right areas for grass, not just, miles and miles.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about grass, that's one thing that a lot of guys love to do here. They love to throw a frog over it. They love to punch it. They love to flip it. Do things that you can't do anywhere else. And I mean, as a bodybuilder, I'm sure you probably broke off on a few too many fish on 6-pound line. So you might like the heavier stuff. That
power fishing was always something fun for me, especially out here in Delta. But and that being said, I did grow up on just lakes, little watershed lakes, or what they would call island reservoir type lakes. And those were fun, but you had to finesse fish a lot. So once I started fishing the Delta, the power fish, it was like opportunity is something I could use, initially. And so, the Delta is the place to power fish, man. It has everything that you can ask for here. And, that being said, the way I've been focusing on the last couple of, months here has been a lot of frogging fishing, a lot of frog fishing and punching, and also been focusing on some of the bed fishing. And that being said, there was a really early wave of fish that came in this year. That loaded up. The main phases with the weather, it's been a really sinking spawn, and it's it's right now you have the fish and all transition. So, you guys can catch them on beds, guys can get still pre spawn, and then there's plenty of post spawn.
And I mean, generally they weigh their heavier when they are on a bed. Is that going to play into it? Those spawn fish that might fight a little bit better, but are harder to weigh in good ones? Or, I mean, how do you narrow out those bigger fish? And is there a way to use certain techniques to do that?
For sure. I think, for a lot of these guys, the good fish and also spawn without, fraud. And of course, still punch bites and still get the respawn fish. Probably got the as well. So, it depending on where the Delta those fish are at. I know Zach and both talked before. Zach had mentioned something that's pretty important. Fish tend to spawn earlier up north and south, when the Delta tends to spawn a little bit later on. But again, we've had such a warm swing early this year. Like there was an initial pop everywhere throughout the whole Delta since January. That is a neat. So it's been hard to really isolate each group of these waves of fish as well because of how the weather patterns have changed so frequently. This nice stable weather to come back in, I do think is going to play to people that are doing some bed fishing. But again, there's plenty of fish still to be had in the spots.
Okay. Let's talk about how can you get confidence in flipping and punching and throwing this stuff that, I mean, if you're not used to doing it, it's hard to get into. And there's guys that live out here religiously on and off the water multiple days a week that are really good at it. How do you get good?
Again, practice time on the water. I think learning what to flip and what to punch right now, that's the most important thing. I mean, you can flip for a half a day and not get bit, and then you can go to a certain spot. And just the only land on and a lot of that is, a specific area that you're targeting. Right now, again, like I said, I think there's so much grass, and for the people to really, do get bit finally, then they can tend to replicate that. Let's try to make pick, and kind of, okay, this is what I got bitten, and then try to replicate that throughout the Delta. And so that is the key focus. I think your question, is really how do you build that confidence? I think once you start hitting bit flipping, after you flipped a lot of different types of cover, and then you start getting bit, that's when you see on what that specific area was and look for that in different areas of the Delta and try to replicate that.
And how do you break down different areas? I mean, is it kind of a confidence thing? You fish all over, you realize you really like strength track, and that's where you, I mean, spend a lot of your time, or again, is it time of year, time of day?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think there's fish all throughout the Delta. Um, you can really put your trolling motor down and catch fish everywhere. So I do think there's certain areas that people have confidence in, past history of catching good fishing. So they're biased and going back there. Um, but all in all, I think the Delta fish is it fishes all huge, which is awesome. I mean, it's not some of these fishes, some of these lakes tend to fish really small. And Delta it's not like that. Let's say mid Delta, it's not. So I think it's really I'm on the water and feeling confident and like getting spitting, and then trying to replicate that.
Okay. Here's a flip on it. What about those guys that have devoted their time to live show? When they're at Shasta, they're kicking everyone's butt, but when they're here, they might be spinning in circles a little bit.
It's a good question. Yes, it's interesting. I use it a little bit here and there on the Delta in the grass, and I know some guys most recently in the last couple of years been starting to use it and getting very successful with it, but for the most part, for the Delta, it's not something you have to buy, which is awesome. Especially this time of year, I think more in the fall or winter, I still can play. It's not the same time. Right now, the fish are offering, and sometimes life still doesn't. It's beneficial when they're down that hard.
Fair. Well, I think we got a lot of insight. We got a lot of information that you probably didn't expect. It's hard to break these Delta guys also to get them talking. So we got pretty lucky this week having 3 great guests. I think we're going to try and do this on day 2, or day 1, day 2, and day 3 of the competition as well. So make sure you keep a lookout on special episodes. Ted, give them a little bit of confidence piece if they haven't stepped into the tournament world yet, but they need to. And
you got to just pay your dues. Honestly, fishing as a co is the best thing. You get the most experience. You learn from the pros. You learn tips, techniques. You learn what fish are relating to, and then you're able to expand on that. I think really the experience and being out there with somebody that knows what they're doing is the most important piece of the puzzle. And then from that over time and learning. Going out on your own and then starting to replicate that yourself, it becomes really rewarding when you're able to do it on your own. Fishing with other guys for a long time and learning, and then putting it, toward yourself. So,
awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Ted. Hopefully, you're one of those guys in the top 10 too. I mean, we want everyone that's competing to be there. Unfortunately, it's not for everyone. If it's your time, it's your time, and if you're on the right fish, then you're going to do well. Good work, Ted.
Michael,
good luck
so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is the blast off. So if you guys want to stay up bright and early, you can see stuff going on all day long at campgirl.com. You can watch it on social media. You can follow my socials as well. And like I said, join the blast off because you don't want to miss an episode every Friday. There's a lot going on and a lot being talked about.
Awesome, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hey, Northern California bass anglers. Ready to elevate your fishing game? Ford Fairfield partners with Bass Angler Magazine to offer top-notch trucks tailored for your needs. Our simple pricing ensures a fair deal and exceptional service. We live and breathe bass fishing, participating in local tournaments to understand exactly what you need so you never miss a good bite. Visit Ford Fairfield today and let's hit the water together.